like this idea of choice runs right through, you know, the very kind of the neoliberal, conservative, mainstream kind of dogma. It's like,
well, we have liberals in America, i.e. what we call corporate Democrats, who are pushing this choice narrative. But in reality, how do you have a choice? You don't have a choice if you can't afford the healthcare in America. You don't get it.
Yeah. Well, like a choice between Pepsi and Coke. I mean, what kind of choice is that? You know, like it's just window dressing. I mean, you know, I think the situation in the States, from what I can tell, to, you know, all of Europe, even under quite right-wing conservative governments in Europe, is that we have had for quite a long time big concessions to working class protest, to the labour movement. It's precisely because the powers that be are nervous and have been consistently nervous, at least since the turn of the 20th century. You know, but what we have as a result is a kind of strange mixed hybrid. It seems frighteningly kind of brutal, the situation in the States in comparison. You know, again, going back to my own experience of healthcare in the States, I remember speaking to a nurse, black gentleman, who'd obviously from a southern working class background, you know, God knows how much sort of hardship and probably racism the gentleman had experienced, lovely chap. Talked to him about our healthcare service and how it was free. You know, and he was like, yeah, it'd be nice, but in America, it's just not how we do it. You have to pay for everything. We want to pay for everything. Now, that's going to be a big kind of psychological hurdle for a lot of Americans to get their head around, I imagine. But, you know, healthcare is seen as a human right in this country.
And my last question, when you look at America, Bernie Sanders in particular is described as socialist, in some quarters a communist. He's described as radical. He's described as he will bankrupt America. Obviously, you can't speak for all of Great Britain, but to you, somebody in Bernie Sanders is essentially just kind of trying to extend what Franklin Delano Roosevelt put. Does he seem radical to you, or does he seem kind of in step with a lot of the things you're talking about?
He seems entirely in step with a lot of the things that we're talking about. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn, let's be clear, seems quite radical in Britain at the moment, because we've had, you know, ruthless neoliberalism, very close, you know, since Thatcher, very close to the neoliberal governments in the States, of course. But, you know, lots of his policies, lots of his manifesto in the current election is stuff that is actually already quite normal in other European governments that you wouldn't necessarily think of as kind of socialist. I mean, don't forget, there isn't any kind of really existing socialist states in Europe anymore anyway. So this idea that he's some kind of mad communist, no, he absolutely doesn't look like that. He does, however, in comparison to the rest of the mainstream American politicians, Hillary Clinton and Trump and so on, does seem refreshingly different. I mean, one of the things that really struck me and I thought was really wonderful to see was that Bernie Sanders, I've seen him appear on picket lines with striking workers. Now, from over here, from all of this far distance, I can't imagine ever seeing an American politician of his standing do something as radical as that. Now, maybe they have in the past, but they certainly haven't for a bit. So I think he's very good news. I think his campaign's been very positive and compassionate and exciting. Something's got to give. I think one last thing, if I can, reason why I think Hillary Clinton didn't do so well, and why kind of centrist formulations, Ed Miliband's leadership in the British Labour Party here isn't doing well, is people have, for obvious reasons, had enough. They want change. They want an alternative. If people like us don't make
Are you telling me Putin didn't brainwash everybody's heads, and it's actually people are just fed up?
I think people are just fed up, and I think, you know, people's lived experience informs their voting habits far more than any of the expert polls will ever be able to reflect, because usually the people doing the polling don't know how to reflect that. But, you know, what you're seeing is people who absolutely have had enough, and if we can't put arguments for a compassionate alternative, they'll go in the direction of a Trump-style alternative, which is ultra-right, fascistic leaning. Trump isn't a fascist. There are camps for some people, I mean, but let's be clear, you know, he's still absolutely a frightening man, and it's because people are tired. We can't give them more of the same. We have to give them some real radical alternatives, and in the States that looks like Bernie, over here it looks like Jeremy, and I think we've got a really good chance for both of our nations to improve working people's lives. One would hope.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.